The shuttle broke through the clouds, and Kang Jiho saw the academy for the first time. It floated above the planet like a city made of glass and steel. Thousands of lights blinked across its surface. Ships moved around it like small fish around a whale. Jiho pressed his hand against the window and felt his heart beat faster. He was 22 years old. He came from a small town in Korea on Earth. 6 months ago, he was just a soldier. Now he was about to become the first human to ever walk into the Galactic Military Academy. The shuttle docked with a soft thump. Jiho grabbed his single bag and walked toward the exit. The doors opened and cold air hit his face. He stepped out into a massive hall filled with beings he'd only seen in pictures before. There were cavalry everywhere. They stood over 2 meters tall, with scales covering their bodies like armor. Their eyes were yellow, and their teeth were sharp. They were known across the galaxy as the greatest warriors. Many of them looked at Jiho as he walked past. None of them seemed impressed. He saw Thizans, too. They had 6 limbs and moved with strange grace. Their heads were shaped like triangles, and their eyes were completely black. They were famous for their intelligence. One of them watched Jiho and clicked her mandibles in what might have been laughter. The Mindori were harder to spot. They looked almost like shadows with thin bodies and long antennae. They could read thoughts and share minds with each other. Jiho had been warned about them. They found humans difficult to read. Human minds were too loud, too messy, too full of noise. A voice called out across the hall. "Human, you are the human, yes?" Jiho turned and saw a tall cavalry walking toward him. This one wore the marks of a senior cadet. His scales were deep green and a scar ran across his face. "I am Veltris," the cavalry said. He did not offer his hand. "I am the top-ranked cadet in this academy. I have heard about you." Jiho nodded. "Good things, I hope." Veltris made a sound that might have been a laugh. "No, not good things. They say Earth sent you as a joke. A political game. Your species joined the coalition, and now they want to pretend you belong here." Other cadets had stopped to watch. Jiho felt their eyes on him. Some were curious. Most were not friendly. "I am not a joke," Jiho said quietly. "I earned my place here. Did you?" Veltris leaned closer. He smelled like metal and something sharp. "You are small. You are soft. Your bones break easily. Your skin tears. You cannot see in the dark. You cannot hear like we hear. You cannot run like we run." He tapped one claw against Jiho's chest. "What do you hope to prove here, little human?" Jiho looked up at the massive warrior. He did not step back. He did not look away. "I am just here to learn," he said. Veltris stared at him for a long moment. Then he turned and walked away without another word. The crowd began to move again. The show was over. Jiho found his room in the lower section of the academy. It was small and simple. One bed, one desk, one window that looked out at the stars. He set his bag down and sat on the bed. He had known this would be hard. The officers back on Earth had warned him. They said the aliens would not accept him. They said he would face challenges that no human had ever faced. They asked him if he was sure. He was sure. The first weeks were difficult. Classes moved fast. The teachers did not slow down for him. The other cadets did not help him. He ate alone in the food hall. He studied alone in the library. He trained alone in the combat rooms after everyone else had gone to sleep. The physical training was the hardest. The cavalry could lift weights that would crush a human. The Thesans could solve problems that made Jiho's head hurt. The Mindori could communicate without speaking, sharing plans and ideas in the blink of an eye. Jiho could do none of these things. But he could do something else. He could keep going. When the training made his muscles scream, he kept going. When the lessons made his brain tired, he kept studying. When the loneliness made him want to quit, He remembered why he was here. He was here to prove that humans belonged among the stars. Some cadets placed bets on when he would fail. They did not hide this from him. A Thesan named Aura told him directly one day in the hall. "I've bet that you will leave before the end of this term," she said. Her black eyes showed no emotion. "Nothing personal. It is simply logical. You are not built for this." "Thank you for telling me," Jiho said. "You are not angry?" "No. I will just have to make sure you lose your bet." Aura's mandibles clicked. She walked away without another word. Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into months. Jiho did not leave. He did not fail. He was never the best at anything. He was usually near the bottom. But he was still there, and slowly, some of the cadets began to notice something strange about the human. He never complained. He never made excuses. He fell down and got back up. Again and again and again. One night, Jiho stood alone in the training room. His body ached. His hands were bruised from practice. Through the window, he could see the stars stretching out forever. He thought about home. He thought about his family. He thought about all the humans who would never get this chance. He could not fail them. He picked up his training weapon and started again. The alarm rang through the academy at dawn. Every cadet knew what it meant. Instructor Ravan was calling an assembly. Jiho got dressed quickly and joined the river of cadets flowing toward the grand hall. The cavalry moved in groups, talking in their deep voices. The Thesans walked in neat lines. The Mandori drifted silently, their antennae moving as they shared thoughts with each other. Jiho walked alone. As always, the grand hall was enormous. It can hold 10,000 beings and still feel empty. Today it was full. Cadets from every year filled the seats that rose up toward the ceiling like steps. At the center stood a platform, and on that platform stood Instructor Ravan. Ravan was a Dralith. His species was ancient. They had been traveling the stars when humans were still living in caves. He was tall and thin, with gray skin that looked like stone. His eyes were white with no pupils. Some said he was over 300 years old. Some said he had fought in wars that were now only history. When he spoke, everyone listened. "Cadets." His voice was deep and slow, like rocks grinding together. "The time has come for the final simulation." A murmur ran through the hall. Jiho felt the tension rise around him. He had heard stories about the final simulation. Every senior cadet talked about it with fear and excitement. Ravan raised one hand and the hall went silent. "This simulation will test everything you have learned. Your combat skills, your strategy, your ability to work as a team. Your ranking in the fleet will depend on your performance." He pressed a button and a hologram appeared above the platform. It showed a stone fortress on a dead world. The sky was red. The ground was black. Around the fortress, an army of drones filled the horizon. The scenario is called The Last Citadel. Your team will defend this fortress against endless waves of enemy drones. You cannot win. You can only survive. The team that survives the longest will earn the highest honors. Jiho studied the hologram carefully. The fortress looked old and broken. The walls had holes. The towers were crumbling. The drones looked advanced and deadly. Teams will be assigned randomly, Ravan continued. 4 cadets per team. You will work together or you will fall together. There is no other option. The hologram changed to show a list of names. Teams appeared one by one. Jiho watched as familiar names grouped together. He waited for his own. Then he saw it. Team 7. Veltries, Aura, Bale, Kang Jiho. The hall went quiet for a moment. Then whispers exploded everywhere. Jiho could feel eyes turning toward him. He could feel the surprise and the anger. VLTR, Is was the top-ranked cadet in the academy. Aura was the smartest Thyssen in her year. Bale was a Mindori whose mental powers were legendary. They were three of the best, and they had been grouped with the only human dot after the assembly. Jiho walked toward his room. He did not get far. Human. He stopped and turned. Aura stood behind him with Veltries and Bale. Her 6 limbs were crossed, and her black eyes were cold. "This is a mistake," she said. "The computer made an error. We should not be grouped with you." "The assignments are random," Jiho said. "No one controls them. That does not matter." Veltris stepped forward. His scales caught the light, and his yellow eyes burned. "You will slow us down. You will cost us our ranking. I will do my best. Your best is not good enough." Aura's mandibles clicked. "When the simulation begins, you will stay behind the walls. You will guard a back corridor. You will not fight. You will not interfere. Do you understand?" Jiho looked at them. The greatest warrior, the smartest strategist, the most powerful telepath. They all looked at him like he was nothing. He could have argued. He could have told them that he had trained just as hard as anyone. He could have demanded respect, but Jiho had learned something important in his time at the academy. He had learned when to speak and when to wait. "I understand," he said. Veltries made a rough sound. "Good. Stay out of our way, and maybe we can still win this." They walked away and left him standing alone in the hall. That night, Jiho could not sleep. He sat at his desk and studied the simulation files on his screen. He read everything he could find about the last Citadel. The scenario had been used for 60 cycles. In all that time, no team had ever beaten it. The longest any team had survived was 4 hours. Most teams fell in less than 2. Jiho read about the drones. They were fast and deadly. They came in waves that never stopped. Each wave was stronger than the last. They adapted to tactics and learned from mistakes. He read about past simulations. He watched recordings. He studied the patterns. Something felt wrong. He could not explain it. The scenario seemed straightforward. Defend the fortress. Survive as long as possible. Simple. But something in his gut told him it was not that simple. Something was hidden. Something that everyone else had missed. He watched the recordings again. He watched the drones move. He watched how they attacked. He watched how they changed. Then he saw it. The drones did not just adapt. They responded. When a commander gave an order, the drones adjusted moments later. When a team changed strategy, the drones changed too. It was almost like they were listening. Jiho sat back in his chair. His heart was beating fast. What if the simulation was not about defense? What if it was about finding something that no one else had found? He looked at the time. It was late. The simulation would begin tomorrow. Jiho closed his screen and lay down on his bed. He stared at the ceiling and thought about what he had seen. Maybe Veltries was right. Maybe his best was not good enough. Maybe he would fail. But Jiho had not come this far to hide behind walls and watch others fight. He had come here to prove something. Tomorrow, he would get his chance. He closed his eyes and let sleep take him. In his dreams, he saw the fortress burning and the drones circling like vultures. And in the middle of it all, he saw himself standing alone. The neural pod closed around Jiho like a metal shell. Cold gel pressed against his skin. Wires connected to his temples and spine. He closed his eyes and felt the world dissolve. When he opened them again, he was somewhere else. The fortress rose around him. Ancient stones covered with cracks and burns. Walls that had been broken and rebuilt 100 times. Towers that reached toward a red sky filled with smoke and ash. The ground was black. Nothing grew here. Nothing lived here. This was a dead world, and the fortress was its last heartbeat. Jiho looked down at his body. He wore combat armor and carried a rifle. It felt real. The weight, the texture, the cold metal against his hands. His brain could not tell the difference between simulation and reality. Human. He turned and saw Veltris standing near the main gate. The cavalry was even larger here. His armor made him look like a monster from old stories. Aura stood beside him, her 6 limbs holding weapons and scanning devices. Bale was further back, his antennae glowing softly as he reached out with his mind. "You know your job," Veltris said. "The back corridor. Stay there. Do not move." Jiho nodded. He did not argue. Aura pointed toward a narrow passage behind the main hall. That corridor leads to an old storage area. Nothing important. The drones will not attack there first. You will be safe. Safe. The word felt like an insult. But Jiho kept his face calm. "I understand." He walked toward the corridor while the others took their positions. Veltris stood at the main gate with his massive weapon ready. Aura climbed to a tower where she could see the whole battlefield. Bale closed his eyes and reached out to link minds with their allies. Other teams were in the simulation too. Jiho could hear their voices through the communication system. 12 teams in total. 48 cadets fighting for survival. Then the drones came. They appeared on the horizon like a wave of metal and fire. Thousands of them. Red lights blinked across their bodies as they scanned for targets. They made no sound except for the hum of their engines and the click of their weapons. The battle began. Veltris roared and opened fire. His weapon spat plasma bolts that cut through drones like paper. Aura called out targets and calculated trajectories. Bale shared information instantly with teammates across the battlefield. Jiho watched from his corridor. He could see the main hall through a broken doorway. He could hear the explosions and the screams. He could feel the ground shake as drones crashed into the walls. He gripped his rifle and waited. An hour passed. Then 2 teams began to fall. Jiho heard their final messages through the communication system. Some were angry. Some were calm. All of them ended the same way. Team 3 is down. Team 8 is down. Team 11 is down. The waves kept coming, each one stronger than the last. Veltris was tireless, but even he was slowing. Aura's calculations became more desperate. Bale's mental link strained under the chaos. Jiho stayed in his corridor and watched, and he noticed something. Every time Veltris shouted a command, the drones responded. When he said to focus on the left, drones appeared on the right. When Aura calculated a pattern, the pattern changed. It was small. It was subtle. But it was real. The drones were not just attacking. They were listening. Jiho remembered what he had seen in the recordings. He remembered the feeling that something was wrong. Now he understood. He opened his communication channel. "The drones are listening to us. They can hear our commands." Static answered him. Then Veltris's voice, hard and angry. "Silence, human. Focus on your post. No, listen to me. They are adapting too fast. Something is controlling them. Something is," I said, "silence." Veltris cut the channel. Jiho stood alone in the dark corridor. His heart was racing. He knew he was right. He knew something was out there. But no one would listen. He could stay here. He could wait in his safe corridor until the simulation ended. He could follow orders and let the others handle the battle. But that was not why he came to this. Academy. Jiho moved to the broken wall and looked out at the battlefield. Drones filled the sky like angry insects. Fire burned across the wasteland. Through the smoke and chaos, he searched for what he knew must be there. Then he saw a far behind the swarm. Almost hidden by the smoke, a small drone floated alone. It was different from the others. It did not attack. It did not move with the waves. It just watched, a command unit. The brain of the swarm, Jiho made his decision in one heartbeat. He did not ask permission. He did not call for help. He grabbed his rifle, climbed through the broken wall, and ran into the wasteland. The ground was hot under his feet. Drones screamed past him, focused on the fortress. A few noticed him and turned to attack. He fired without stopping. He rolled through the ash. He kept running. Pain exploded in his shoulder as a drone clipped him. The simulation made him feel everything. His arm went numb. Blood ran down his chest. Real blood. Real pain. He kept running. The command drone was close now. He could see its shape through the smoke. It was no bigger than his head, with a single red eye that swept across the battlefield. Jiho raised his rifle. His hands were shaking. His vision was blurring from the pain. He fired. The command drone exploded in a ball of white fire. The light filled the sky. And then everything stopped. The drones froze in the air, like someone had pressed a button to stop time. Thousands of them hung motionless above the battlefield. Their red lights went dark. Their weapons went silent. Inside the fortress, Aura was the first to notice. "Veltris," she called through the communication channel. Her voice was confused. "The drones have stopped. All of them." Veltris stood at the gate, his weapon still raised. Smoke rose from the barrel. His chest heaved with heavy breaths. He looked out at the frozen swarm and did not understand. "What happened?" "I do not know." Aura's 6 limbs moved across her scanning equipment. "Their command signal is gone. They have no orders. They cannot function." Bale's antennae twitched. He was reaching out with his mind, trying to understand. Something destroyed their source. Something out in the wasteland. Veltris turned his yellow eyes toward the battlefield. Through the smoke and fire, he saw a single figure standing alone among the ash. It was the human. Jiho stood over the burning wreckage of the command drone. His armor was cracked. His shoulder was bleeding badly. His face was covered with ash and sweat. But he was standing. He was alive. "No," Veltris whispered. He could not believe what he was seeing. The sky flickered. The red clouds began to dissolve. The simulation was ending. Instructor Ravon's voice echoed across the world like thunder from the gods. "Simulation complete. All teams, the scenario has ended. Team 7 has achieved victory by unconventional means." Silence filled the battlefield. In the other team's positions, cadets stared at each other in shock. Some had been fighting for hours. Some had watched their teammates fall. All of them had accepted that the last citadel could not be won, but the human had won it. The simulation dissolved. Jiho felt the neural connections release him. The pain in his shoulder faded to a dull ache. He opened his eyes and found himself back in the metal pod. The lid opened and bright light filled his vision. Medical teams rushed toward him. He heard voices calling his name. Hands reached in and helped him out. His body was trembling. The simulation had pushed him to his limits. His brain was overloaded with stress and pain signals. Humans experienced simulation injuries more intensely than other species. His nervous system did not know the difference between fake wounds and real ones. A medic pressed something against his neck. Cold relief spread through his body. "Easy," she said. "You are safe now. The simulation is over." Jiho nodded. He could not speak yet. Around him, other pods were opening. Veltris emerged from his pod and stood like a statue. His eyes found Jiho across the room. There was something new in those yellow eyes. Something that had not been there before. Aura climbed out next. Her mandibles were still. She did not click them in laughter. She did not call him weak or useless. Bale was last. His antennae trembled as he looked at the human. He projected a single thought that everyone nearby could feel. The human is terrifying. The debriefing room was cold and quiet. All the cadets who had participated in the simulation sat in rows facing a raised platform. Instructor Revan stood at the center, his wide eyes sweeping across the crowd. For 60 cycles, he began, his voice filling the room. No team has defeated the last citadel. The scenario was designed to be unwinnable. Every team that has ever entered it has eventually fallen. The record for survival was 4 hours and 17 minutes. He paused to let the words sink in. The last citadel was never a test of combat skill. It was a test of endurance. A test of how long you could fight against impossible odds. A test of how you would face defeat. Murmurs spread through the cadets. Some of them had suspected this. Most had not. But today, something changed. Revan's eyes moved to Team 7. Today, one cadet saw what no one else saw. He felt that something was wrong. He noticed patterns that others missed. And when he found the truth, he did not ask for permission. He did not wait for orders. He acted. Every eye in the room turned to Jiho. Cadet Kang Jiho of Earth, Revan continued. You were told to stay behind the walls. You were told to guard a corridor that did not matter. Your team expected you to do nothing. Jiho felt his face grow warm. He kept his eyes forward. But you chose differently. You observed the enemy. You analyzed their behavior. You found their weakness. And then you ran through fire and pain to destroy them. Revan's stone face showed something that might have been respect. This is not something we teach at this academy. This is not something that can be learned from books or training. This comes from somewhere else. The room was completely silent. Humans are not the strongest species, Revan said. They are not the fastest or the smartest. They cannot read minds or calculate like machines. By every measure we use, they should not survive in this galaxy. He looked directly at Jiho. But they have something we did not expect. They see patterns in chaos. They feel when something is wrong. They push through pain that would stop others. And they break rules that do not serve them. Revan raised one hand toward Team 7. Team 7 has achieved what was thought impossible. Their victory will be recorded in the Academy's history. And the cadet who made it possible will carry that honor with him. The room exploded with noise. Some cadets cheered. Some sat in stunned silence. Some looked at Jiho with new eyes, seeing him for the first time as something more than a weak human. Jiho did not move. He did not smile. He just sat there and let the moment wash over him. He had done what he came here to do. He had proved that humans belonged, and this was only the beginning. The days after the simulation moved slowly for Jiho. The medics kept him under observation because his body needed time to recover. The neural stress had pushed his brain to its limits. He slept more than he had slept in months, but even in the medical wing, he could feel that something had changed. Cadets who had never spoken to him before stopped by his room. Some came to ask questions. Some came just to look at him, like he was something strange and new. A few came to apologize for things they had said or done. Jiho accepted all of it with the same quiet calm he always showed. He did not brag. He did not gloat. He just nodded and said thank you and waited for his body to heal. On the third day, Velters came to see him. The massive Kelvari stood in the doorway of the medical room. His scales caught the light. His yellow eyes were different now. The contempt was gone. Something else had taken its place. Human, Veltries said. Veltries. The Kelvari walked into the room and stood beside the bed. He was silent for a long moment. Words did not come easily to his kind. Emotions were difficult. I told you that you were small, Veltries finally said. I told you that you were soft. I told you that you could not prove anything here. Jiho waited. I was wrong. The words hung in the air like something precious and rare. Veltries had never apologized to anyone. His pride was famous across the academy. For him to say these words took more strength than any battle. What you did in the simulation, Veltris continued, I could not have done. I was fighting the same way I always fight. Harder and faster and stronger. But you saw something different. You found a path that I could not see. Jiho sat up slowly. His body still ached, but the worst of the pain was gone. I almost did not do it, he admitted. When you told me to stay behind the walls, I almost listened. I almost followed orders. Why did you not? Jiho thought about the question. It was a good question. He had been asking himself the same thing. Because I felt something was wrong, he said. I could not explain it. I just knew that the simulation was not what it seemed. And I could not ignore that feeling, even when everyone told me I was wrong. Veltris nodded slowly. This is what Ravan spoke about. This thing that humans have. You feel truth even when you cannot prove it. Sometimes. Not always, but when it matters. Veltris extended his clawed hand toward Jiho. I will not underestimate humans again. And I will not underestimate you. Jiho took the hand and felt the strength in those claws. A handshake between species that had started as strangers and ended as something more. When Veltris left, Aura came next. The Thesan moved on her 6 limbs with careful precision. Her black eyes studied Jiho like she was solving a puzzle. I lost my bet, she said. Jiho smiled. Sorry about that. Do not be sorry. I am glad I lost. Her mandibles clicked softly. I have calculated many things in my life. I have solved problems that others thought impossible. But I never calculated that a human could do what you did. Math does not always have the answer. No, it does not. And that is difficult for me to accept. Aura moved closer. I want to understand. How did you know to look for the command drone? How did you see what we could not see? Jiho shook his head. I do not know. I just watched the patterns. I noticed that the drones responded too fast. Like they were hearing our commands. So I looked for the thing that was listening. Pattern recognition, Aura said. Your brain processes information differently than ours. You see connections that are not obvious. This is a strength we did not recognize. Or maybe I was just lucky. Aura's mandibles clicked again. This time, it was definitely laughter. Luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. You were prepared. You found your opportunity. That is not luck. She left without saying goodbye. Thesans did not believe in goodbyes. They believed in future meetings. Bale came last. The Mindori moved like a shadow and stood at the foot of Jiho's bed. His antennae glowed softly as he reached out with his mind. For the first time, Jiho felt the touch of telepathy. It was strange and warm, like someone speaking directly into his thoughts. Your mind is loud, Bale said without speaking. Full of noise and chaos. But there is something else in there. Something fierce. What do you mean? Jiho asked aloud. You refused to give up. Even when your body was damaged. Even when the pain should have stopped you. Your mind kept pushing forward. I have never felt anything like it. Jiho remembered the run through the wasteland. The fire and the drones and the blood running down his arm. Every part of his body had screamed at him to stop, but he had not stopped. Humans are terrifying, Bale repeated. And I think the galaxy is just beginning to understand why. He faded away like smoke in the wind. Jiho was alone again. A week later, Jiho stood on the observation deck of the academy. Stars stretched out in every direction. Millions of lights against the endless black. Somewhere out there was Earth, his home, his people. Footsteps approached behind him. He did not turn around. Cadet Kang. Instructor Ravan's voice was unmistakable. Jiho stood at attention. At ease, Ravan said. He moved to stand beside Jiho and looked out at the stars. You have changed things. You know, the coalition is talking about what happened here. They are reconsidering their views on humanity. I was just one person in one simulation. No, you were the first. Ravon's wide eyes reflected the starlight. You showed them what humans can do. You made them ask questions they had never asked before. And soon, other humans will come to this academy. They will walk through those doors because you walked through them first. Jiho felt something warm spread through his chest. Pride, maybe. Or hope. I did not do it alone, he said. My team helped me. Your team tried to put you in a corner where you could not fail or succeed. You chose to step out of that corner. Ravon turned to face him. That choice was yours alone. Own it. The ancient instructor walked away, leaving Jiho with the stars. He thought about his journey. The small town in Korea, the military training, the shuttle ride to Nexer Prime, the months of loneliness and struggle, the simulation that changed everything. He was still the only human at the academy. Ravon was right, Dot. He would not be the last. Somewhere out there, other humans were looking up at the same stars, dreaming the same dreams, waiting for their chance to prove that they belonged among the giants of the galaxy. Jiho smiled and made a silent promise to all of them. I will keep this door open. I will make sure you have the chance that I had. And together, we will show the galaxy what humanity can do. The stars twinkled in the darkness, full of possibilities. The story of humanity among the stars had only just begun.